He goes by the name of Lee Syatt. He's a stand-up comedian, amongst many other things. How you doing, Lee?
I'm doing great. How's it going? Thank you very much for having me on the show today.
Big fan, and so I'm glad to have you on the show today, and just to follow up with you and catch up with you, and just to hear you speak and just hear what you're up to, and things of that nature.
Awesome. I'm excited to be on the show, and I had a great time on the church. So yeah, I'm ready to do it. Whatever you need to do, I'm here to go. I had just started my third year when when COVID hit. Luckily, I think I actually did have it, but it's not confirmed. So when COVID hit, it kind of killed comedy, but it's just starting to come back. So hopefully, I'll return to stand up pretty soon.
It's pretty cool to see what Tony Hinchcliffe and Brian Redband are doing with Kill Tony. I think that's pretty special. The live aspect of it all, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I never got to see a full. I saw bits and pieces of it live. I've seen it on YouTube, of course, but no, it's a live podcast is a very different thing than pre-recorded or even live streaming, because you have to be. I mean, the audience, if they don't like it, it's gonna sound pretty terrible. So they built it up. They built it up from a free show in the belly room to world touring. So they've done a great job.
Absolutely. All right, Lee. Well, let's get back to you, Lee. Can we talk a little bit about your upbringing, growing up in Massachusetts, and how you ended up in Hollywood, and
Sure.
then leading up to now?
Absolutely. What do you want to know?
So let's start off with the beginning. You were how did you get into filmmaking, into Hollywood? What made you want to leave Mass and go to Hollywood? How did you go from there? Where did you study? You said you went to Emerson.
Right, I went to Emerson. I loved video, and I thought I wanted to be an editor. I loved playing with I've always loved tech stuff. So when I was in high school, I took every film production course they had, actually to a point where my senior year I was actually a TA, because I just literally did everything they had. And I went to Emerson originally for film. But then when I was there, they created a new major called digital post-production, and I really enjoyed the editing process. So the summer between my junior and senior year, I got an internship with America's Funniest Home Videos, and while I was there, I did online courses so I could graduate a semester early. I was always ready. There was a joke in my family that when I was like 6, I said I wanted a car, an apartment, and a job, and I was okay at school, but I was bored. So I graduated, and I did that for a whole summer, and I graduated in December, and I bought a car, and a week later I was driving to LA, and they offered me a job at America's Funniest Home Videos. Wow. And yeah, I met Joey about 6 months in to being in LA, but I did editing for about 3 years, and
so that's just a coincidence that you sort of met a lot of people move to Hollywood, and it takes years before they find that thing that they keep doing for a while. So you got there, and within the America's Funniest Home Videos, within moving to Hollywood, 6 months in, you met Joey, and then you guys started working with that show.
Well, yeah. Well, so when I was working at America's Funniest Home Videos, the way TV shows work is they go in seasons, and there's a hiatus usually for the summer, and most of the people laid off sounds like a bad word. It's just like they don't have any work for them when the show's not in production. But I was new to LA. They still are very nice people, and they offered to keep me on during the summer, and I had some work, but a lot of the time was spent trying to look busy. and I found podcasts on my drive to LA, and then when I
Right.
got to LA, I found someone introduced me to Joe Rogan's podcast, and yeah, I happened to reach out to Joey one day on Facebook, and we met and did a couple of things. We did a CD, a documentary, a little YouTube show, and so I moved out in January of 2011, and in September of 2012 is when the church started.
How was that drive? How long did that drive take you from
Oh, I
Boston to
love it.
LA?
Took me about 5 days, but I didn't stop and see anything. I actually have done it twice now because I drove out there for my internship and drove back, and then I drove out there when I moved there, and then drove back when I left. But I honestly, it's my when I grew up, my parents hated driving. Like the longest we ever drove was from Massachusetts to New Jersey, and it took like 5 or 6 hours.
Wow.
And I I mean, when when I like sometimes if I get like down, I'm like, oh, I can't find a job. I would watch YouTube videos about being a truck driver. I actually really enjoy.
Hmm.
It's not fun in traffic, and I don't think I'd like being a truck driver because like
Hmm.
one time I got I needed a rental car. My car got hit or something, and they tried to give me a pickup truck, and I'm very very short. So I tried to drive, and I didn't even make it out of the parking lot. I pulled over and told them I'd kill somebody. So I don't I don't think I'd like driving that big truck, especially not in like small residential areas. But just being able to drive with no traffic, listening to music, listening to a podcast, being by myself. I like being by myself. I like the
It's
silence, and like
absolutely.
actually like especially like because when I've done these drives, for the most part, is like right after college and then right after the church, and it's like the only time I was very busy, and then it was like I had actually a few days to like just do nothing. It's like the only time when you can literally I can't look at my phone, I can't be working. It's a very relaxing thing for me.
It's funny that you say that because a lot of people are saying, we're going to get rid of driving the vehicle and just sort of have it
right,
self-drive for us. And I agree with you. I've done the drive myself actually as well. I did Boston to Hollywood, and it took me about the same time. And same thing. The only time I stopped was in Chicago to pick up some deep dish pizza because I had
right.
to. But besides that, it took about 5 days. Same here, and it really there is something about that. Just driving and having to focus on keeping yourself alive, and the objective is to get to where you're going.
Right. And it's um I don't know. Some people really don't like it, and I've had some scary times driving through weather and stuff like that. But it's a when it's good, when there's no traffic or just minimal traffic, and you can put cruise control on and just sort of zen out. For me, it's like it kind of is like, for lack of a better term, like a very zen thing for me. I really I do it as much as I drove. I told you before we started recording that I spent some time with my dad in Florida this year during the winter because I hate the cold, and I actually, I mean, COVID was a part of it, but I chose to drive down, and that was easy. That's 2.5 days, not barely. And I didn't even push it. When I was driving to California, I would try to do 700 miles. When I was driving from California to Milwaukee for a gig, I actually did 1,000 miles in one day. That was the most I've ever done. But
1,000 miles. Wow.
yeah, that was like a 17-hour day. Something like, it was crazy. But
So you enjoy
dri-
these long drives. You
oh,
like
I love
the
it.
just getting rid of everything from the mind and just going on these drives and listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks as well. You listen to books.
I haven't listened to audiobooks. I should. I really obviously was very immersed in the comedy podcasting world, and to be honest, that's really I listened to the first season of Serial, and I've listened to some sports podcasts, but for the most part, I listen to comedy podcasts. It's what I like, and they're funny and entertaining, and um, that's really mostly every once in a while. Whenever like if I'm starting to get tired, sometimes I'll turn some music on just to like pump myself up, and keep me awake. But other than that, it's pretty much either podcast or phone calls.
Nice, man. Nice. So it's really interesting to think that you at one point were making it out to Hollywood, going on these drives you enjoy doing, and you got introduced to Joe Rogan's podcast. You were listening to it, and cut to later in your career, you actually end up on the show, right? You were on an episode, I believe.
Yeah, many years ago. Many years ago, I spoke a little bit, but Joe was very nice, and Joe was always very nice to me. And had me on the show, and it was very. It's something that I don't think I even fully. Obviously, I understand that it happened, but I don't think I fully grasped how cool the that 8 years of my life was.
It's so hard to, because it's just, you're moving so fast. You're moving at the speed of light, the speed of inspiration. You're just doing things. It's such a huge. It was a huge movement. I feel like you guys got a lot of people out of that. Was a show that a lot of people went to listen to, and it was the reason people listen to podcasts. It's that escape. It's that thing, and that's, yeah, absolutely. I can see how you weren't able to really grasp all that time because you're living in it.
Right, and my life didn't change very much. I lived in the same apartment. I wasn't getting invited to Hollywood Hills parties or anything.
Hmm.
I got recognized maybe towards the end once or twice a week. LA has a lot of podcast listeners. Um, so that was very flattering and fun, and I got to the coolest thing, and I'm glad it sounds like it's reopening maybe in the next week or so. I think actually maybe this weekend. When we're recording, well, I don't know when this is coming out, but the coolest thing that I probably got to do was go to the Comedy Store a lot. And with Joey, and even without Joey, they let comics into the back to watch when there's seats. And
Nice.
that was oh yeah, that LA was never my favorite place. It's I'm not a big like partier. I'm not a beach person. I mean, you can see how I do have a ring light, so I'm not this white, but I am pretty white, and I'm not really much of a beach person. But the Comedy Store, the comedy, even all the improvs and the Ice House around LA, and then the one other place I do miss in LA is the New Beverly Cinema, and unfortunately they just timed it terrible timing. They closed for like a year to redo it, and for those of you who don't know, it's Quentin. When I moved there, Quentin Tarantino owned a part of it, but now he owns the whole thing, and it's a every day they have double features for like it used to be like $6. It might have gone up a little bit, but unfortunately they closed for a year right before the pandemic, and they had just sort of reopened, and I hadn't made it down there, and then COVID hit, and I hope they survived. I'm not sure if I hope they did, but that those two things, comedy and movies, were the things I liked about LA.
That's a very, you're right, man. I don't think it's closed. I hope it hasn't closed.
Oh, I
You're
hope
right.
not. Yeah.
You're right, man. When I was in Boston, I was seeing Quentin shoot the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on Yahoo,
Oh,
and I was seeing the press for that. And I'm an actor, so I do acting on the side, and so I was like, man, I would have loved to have done that because I'm a huge fan of his work, and just to have somehow engaged in that experience. And crazy enough, when I happened to have made that drive and made it out, I got a casting request for this thing, just on a regular breakdown. It said like 1970s, 1950s dude character, it was very vague. And
right.
I was like, all right, cool, whatever, I'll send it over, sent my materials like anything else. And then I get a message from, somebody, still an arbitrary email sort of thing. And they're just like, can you send over some more stuff? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I had it locked and loaded. I sent it over, and like, cut to a couple hours later, they send me an email, and they're like, this is for Quentin's Once Upon a Time. You're going to be on for 2 weeks.
Oh wow.
And it was super awesome, man. It was super awesome.
That's cool. I haven't. You know what? I love Quentin, and I met him at that movie theater the first time I went, but I haven't seen that one yet. So you were in it for 2 weeks?
Yeah, I did it for 2 weeks. I had a couple of parts, but they were all just like, guy walking around. But it was just so cool to see what he had done.
That's cool. It's I know everyone probably wants a speaking starring role, but it just to see yours now. I mean, that'll live forever. You could always turn that on and see yourself in it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can see me in it for just a second. So hey, just the fact that I got to do that and watching Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs is pretty wicked sweet to think about it
Oh,
in totality.
that's awesome. Yeah, that was I probably went at least 4 or 5 times. They would play not Reservoir Dogs. Well, they did play Reservoir Dogs, but they played Pulp Fiction at midnight there. God, it felt like once a month, and I didn't go every time because it's a long movie, and I feel old. When I first got to LA and I was 22, 23, I could do midnight movies, but even though I can stay up late, a midnight movie now is a little bit rough. But yeah, no, that Quentin, it's
It was really special to
one of
see
my
the way
favorites.
it's insane to see the level of dedication he puts to his films. Even seeing he shoots it in film, and it was so awesome. The process of him seeing how he did it, and then the level of just the the perspective. It was so awesome, man. And just showing up, you even like walking on the sidewalk, you kind of like walk, and one side of it was really hollow, and it's because he like completely expanded the sidewalk. It was really insane. That level of dedication is just big respects, because I don't know how many directors are still doing that. So got to keep
Nah,
that
man.
alive.
Yeah, and I mean, I like his movies. I know he gets sometimes some people say, oh, he took stuff from older movies. I think everyone's influenced by other things, but even if you take his directing out of it, I'm really impressed by his writing. To me, is uh great. I love his. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
sometimes his movies are long, and he can be verbose, but his writing to me is probably my favorite part about what he does.
Same here, man. He's gonna write novels after his last film.
Is he
He's gonna
really?
do.
Oh wow.
He's saying. Well, we'll see. All right, you guys. Coming up after our commercial break, we're gonna talk with Lee SYATT some more about his future work, and much more. It's really awesome, man. How's Boston? How are you enjoying Boston? It's big. You haven't been there in a while, right? 8, 9 years in Hollywood.
Right. Well, almost, yeah, 9.5, and I came back a couple times, but we did the show. Um, God, until like the last year or two, we didn't even take a week off, and then even when we did take a week off, we would pre-record and post them that week. So this is the longest that I've spent with both my parents. Like I said, I don't like the cold.
Right,
But
right.
it's been really nice to get to see my parents a little bit more.
Yeah, right. Reconnecting. You, like you said, you're living so fast. At the same time, you had all these wonderful things take place, but at the same time, you start to miss your family because it's hard to make it to all those things. So
Right.
you
I
know,
never went back for a holiday. This is my first Thanksgiving back in like 10 years. So it was I'm building up my business and stuff, but I'm surviving. Luckily I don't have to pay rent right now, and I honestly no complaints. I'm pretty happy.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome to hear, and just it's really crazy to think. I don't know what your family thinks, but you coming out to Hollywood, you made a lot happen, man. You shook a lot of. You should make the ground. You made the ground shake, man. You coming out and with that time and with the level of success you've had, there's a lot to say about that.
Yeah, no, obviously it was not what I thought I was going to be an editor, and I could I could have stayed if I wanted to. I hadn't edited really in God like 6 years, but I was if it wasn't for Joey, I don't think I would have stayed in LA for as long as I did. But I I'm pretty happy with how things went. Obviously, it ended a little sooner than I think it would have under normal times, but Joey was pretty open about the fact that he didn't want to raise his daughter in LA, and things
Was this
were
something you guys kind of spoke about? Sorry to interrupt, Lee.
oh, no, no.
Before was it just you kind of say it was an abrupt
Well,
stop? So
he mentioned it on the podcast before that he didn't want to raise his daughter in LA. He had mentioned throughout the years,
right, who
in
does? Sometimes who does?
right, exactly. So he had mentioned in passing, but there was never like a set end date, and then when COVID started, we we stayed for a while, and I we left in August. I think maybe June, maybe May, but I think it was June when we knew that it was ending, and I feel like we it was pretty soon. The my memory, because of the extracurricular fun we had on the podcast, um is a little bit gone, but it was like it wasn't like we knew for a long time before we announced it on the show. It was pretty pretty about the same time we he decided that he wanted to leave, and I did too, and yeah, it ended up working out pretty well though, because we started it the first week of September in 2012, and it ended the last week of August in 2020. So a full 8-year run, over 800 episodes. So it there's not much more I could ask for.
You got to leave with the bang anyways. Sometimes you do, you put in the work and then you leave with the bang. You guys had a lot of great guests on that show. I could think of in my hands how many great guests you guys had, and just great moments. The show was fantastic. Can we talk a little bit about what made that show so special and just get into that? Because that was a really, again, it's a great show. People are still watching every episode every day, I bet.
Yeah, I know. I don't have access to the numbers anymore, but I'm sure I get hit up a lot. I would love to talk about the church.
Nice, man. So you start there. You start off, you meet Joey, you meet with him on Facebook, you guys chat a little bit, and then you guys link up. You were gonna edit the show for him. Were you always gonna jump in as you really became one and one. It became like a two-man group with the
Right.
show.
So when we started, we met and I helped him out a little bit. He did a Gabriel Iglesias's Comedy Central show called Stand Up Revolution, and they gave everyone who was on the show a bloggy, which was a Sony like little mini video camera. It had a USB in the camera, and you could plug it in. So the way we started is he would shoot throughout the week, give it to me, and then we would put up something on YouTube called Mad Flavors World, and um, we did that. We did a CD, documentary about his life in Jersey, and then I remember the night I was at America's Funniest Home Videos, and he called me at like midnight, and he said, like, "What would you think about?" Oh, that was for the documentary. See, I told him the weed got me. So we were talking. We talked about it multiple times that he the news was always a bummer, and he wanted to do a podcast that would start people's day out with a positive note. So he was at the time he was doing a podcast called Beauty and the Beast with Felicia Michaels, and we started because I was working at the time. I was working on Hell's Kitchen, the TV show, and we started
Nice.
6 in the morning. Yeah, it was a fun show to work on.
You did a
But
lot of great projects in your career with this show. I'm telling you, with this time, you got a lot done.
I had a lot of fun, and there was a lot of TV shows that stunk that I worked on in between. But I did get to work on a couple good TV shows, and but I was working nights. I was working 7 p.m. to 5 a.m., and I would go straight from there to his apartment, and we would do for like the first 2 years of the show. We did it at 6 in the morning, and
Wow.
and yeah, and it just I very much did not want to be on the show. When we were talking about it, I thought he should do it like Bill Burr does his, and I would do the sound, and then maybe he'd have guests on. But he was adamant that he wanted someone to bounce things off of, and it took off from there. It was not what I expected at all.
It built from there, because I think if you were to trace the show and just the interactions, you sort of like you could tell, I think you were just like trying to respect him and his thing, because you jumped on at the end of the day, just trying to accomplish whatever you were needed for. And then it just like grew from there, because I think what people liked was just you guys interacting, and you guys were both providing that interaction that people were just loving to watch. And then you got more comfortable on the camera. You started even talking more, and you fully were on the show. It was like you never heard him talk to like it was you. We wanted to hear Lee.
Right? No, it was a weird thing for me. It took me a while to get comfortable uh, talking on the show and being on camera, and it was it's it's strange to me that I don't know if strange is the word, but it's funny to me that a lot of times there might not be the most downloaded shows, though obviously like the bigger guests like Theo
Mhm.
and Mike Tyson, like the big guests sometimes have more views, but
That's right. You guys
some
had
a lot
Mike Tyson,
yeah, that was crazy. But a lot of people's favorite episodes were the ones with just Joey and I, and
right?
that's great to hear.
That's insane, man. That's and how did that make you feel at the time when you were watching that? Were you like were you just like holy smokes, where people are the comments, because you were an editor, you weren't really a personality ever. You sort of became like an actor. The show was like a show and you were like an actor and you were one of the lead actors. So was it insane to just be like, holy smokes, I'm literally in a show where that people are expecting me to be in, and how did that all feel at the time?
It was very both ends of the spectrum. It was great. I was always a very shy person. Still, I'm a very shy person, but the show very much helped me come out of my shell, and I got to meet, like we said, Mike Tyson, Gabriel Iglesias, Joe Rogan. I met some of my comedy, Ralphie May. I met some of my comedy idols, some great actors, Henry Rollins, and it was always very
You guys
flattering
had
and like just humbling when I would meet people and they'd tell me how much they love the show. Because like I said earlier, my life didn't really change. So I obviously I like understood that the show was going out as a show, but it's still something I'm not quite used to where people are like, oh, I love the show, or I've watched every episode, and it's
Did it ever
I
transition? Were you doing a full time job while maintaining the show, or there was ever a transition where you went from balancing other jobs and then doing the show on the side to having to invest everything into it? How did that look like?
yeah. So for the first 2.5, 3 years of the show, I was doing the television stuff at night or during the day, and then I would do the podcast in my spare time. But then the last show that I got to work on, which was probably, I think it was towards the summer of 2013. I worked on it wasn't his big show, but Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer, had a second show called Caesar 911. And I worked on the first season of that. And I went to a meeting because I qualified to join the editors union. And I went to a meeting about it. And I just, the show was doing well. And I loved hanging out with Joey and getting to spend time with Joey and doing it. And I think it was April of 2013 when I transitioned from doing the editing full time and just worked with Joey. And then throughout the years, I would help other people with their podcasts. I do consulting, or even I helped produce 2 podcasts for real estate agents. So it was
Nice.
I did some other things on the side, but for the most part, from the middle of 2013 on, I was full time with Joey.
Very nice. Very nice. And so moving forward from there, cutting to all those years, you guys get all of these amazing guests. You're living life, and time flies by. And like you said, the way you described it, it just all flew by so fast. And the good thing is it's all captured in video and you can look back and watch it. But so for you, it feels like all that happening, all of those great guests, it just flew by, and we hit 2020, right? When the quarantine happened, and then it was just like, hey, we should put it to a rest. We did a lot of great things with it, and I think you guys. Can we talk a little bit about all the fun you guys were having on the show, and just how you guys
Oh
were doing
yeah,
some insane stuff, man. This was like, all stunts performed here do not perform at home type of stuff.
yeah.
This.
I don't recommend you trying anything that we tried. Absolutely no, but it was a blast. It was I laughed harder than I'll probably ever laugh again.
Man, that's insane to think. So, do you think you guys will ever bring the show back? Do you guys ever talk about this? I mean,
I with Joey and I've said this before and I'll say it again. I honestly feel like we have a better relationship now. Um, than we, not that we had a bad relationship in LA, but we were working together and the pressures of the show. And now that we can just be friends, we still talk 4 to 5 times a week usually. He still busts my balls all the time.
Hmm.
And if I had to guess, I would probably say no, only because if I know Joey as well as I do, once Joey makes a decision, he doesn't tend to go back on things. Um, Not to say that I won't be a guest on his or he won't be a guest on mine eventually, but I think the church as the church is probably over.
You ended with a bang.
Absolutely. Yeah, we went out. God, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. I forgot it the other day too. There was a Detroit Lions running back who retired before people thought he should have, and I can't. It doesn't matter what his name was. But I even said this to Joey. I'm happy that we went out like that. I'm happy that we went out and people still like the show. People are sad that we're gone. It's better to leave on top than it is to like wither out and no one's listening anymore and people don't care that we on the show. So, uh, as much as I
Right.
do miss it, and I miss him, and I miss my other friends in LA. I think you're right. I think we ended right when we were supposed to.
Right. And it's awesome to see that now moving forward, you're out in Boston and you're making all these moves yourself. You've got your shows and you're establishing shows. And in many ways, that's how you transition out of experiences like that. It's like working on a TV show, right? You make this huge investment, all this time. It's like you become a family and then you sort of have to just like adapt and move to the next thing and maintain those relationships you want to maintain and things of this nature.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not sure. Honestly, this I'm. It seems like we're finally, knock on wood, starting to open up again. Um, so, but at the beginning of this year, and we'll still see because people have to get vaccinated, and we have to see what happens. But it seems like the majority of this year is going to be sort of another lost year for a lot of people. Hopefully, we start to open up again. And I have a few things that I'm working on right now, some things that I'm working on outside of podcasting. And I'm treating this. I literally, this is my first week. I'm in, and it looks like I'm in a cell. I haven't put up any artwork yet, but I just got an office to come in
Nice.
and yeah, you know what? I'm lucky enough that I don't have to pay rent right now, and I got it. And it's been working. I got it because I like the idea of having a little bit of a overhead I have to cover, and then I when I come here I have to get dressed. I can't just roll out of bed and put my pajamas on, and I I'm trying to really put 110% in and see what happens.
Nice, man. Hey, the studio looks good. You got a neon light, a little frame. You're good
Yeah.
to go.
Oh yeah, that's all I need. I got a TV here. I got my PlayStation to do Twitch at some point again. I have video camera. I'm going to start shooting some more YouTube videos. And we'll just see. We'll see what happens. I have a call tomorrow with the college that I went to about trying to get an intern actually, and seeing if they can help me out a little bit with some video stuff. And I'm just it's this is not where I didn't think I would be, sort of like the YouTube video person, the podcast creator, whatever you want to call it. But it's where my life is right now, and I'm enjoying it.
Very nice. Well, you're enjoying what you're doing right now, and you're making moves. You're taking care of stuff. You got the studio, and it's all happening. And you seem you're content with where you're at, and that's what it's all about, Leah. What are you doing to
Right.
maintain everything else in between? Your mental state, your health. What are you doing right now? Any reading?
I do have to get back into reading. One of the podcasts that I'm doing is it's called The Waistline, and the Waistline podcast, and I'm doing it to follow. I know your viewers watching are be like, wow, uh, he he's lost weight, but I'm down like 73 pounds. I started in December. of 2020. I've struggled with weight my entire life, and I because of the a few things. I went through a breakup. I started comedy and really focused on that. And then with the pandemic, I got all the way up to 336 pounds, and I'm 5'4". So I look like a walking kettlebell. I was not good. Um, but in December, I started a Patreon to follow my weight loss, and then I started this podcast because I know that there's a lot of people like me who have a lot of weight to lose, and it can sometimes seem impossible. And
The world gets a
I
lot smaller when you share your experience and everybody relates and they're just
oh,
cheering you
absolutely.
on and stuff.
Right. And yeah, so I work out. I do 4 workouts a week, nothing too bad, 2 walks and 2 kettlebell workouts.
Nice.
I count calories, and honestly, that's there's no secret to it. It's just eat less, move a little bit more, and I my birthday is in July, and we'll see what happens. Right now I'm about 26, 27 pounds away from hitting 100 pounds down total, and
Look at that.
yeah, it's good. It's pretty crazy. So I've lost weight a million times before, and I'm not sure if I'll hit 100 pounds down, but I'm hoping I'll hit it by my birthday at the end of July. If I don't, I'm gonna keep going anyways. But my goal is in the next let's see, it's almost May, so 2.5 months, because my birthday is the 20th. Uh, I'm hoping that I can lose the last 26 pounds, and then I won't be anywhere near done. I'll probably have to lose another 70 to 100 pounds to get down to where I should be. Um,
You're
but
looking great, man. You look like you're feeling great. How are you
oh
feeling?
yeah,
That's insane. That much weight off of you. I mean, if we were to put that in like a sack, when you think about it, like that's a lot of weight to carry on the body and to release all that. You must
yeah.
be feeling light as a feather at the moment.
Well, yeah, 73. No, I wouldn't say light as a feather, but definitely a lot better. I'm sleeping a lot better. I feel physically a lot better. But I I'm excited. I We'll see what happens. I 136 would be, even though I'm short, 136 is pretty light. Um and I unfortunately I am going to have some loose skin. But just in my head, to be even though it's depressing that I got that big, to be able to say that I lost 200 pounds is something that I'm excited by, I guess the word would be. So
Absolutely. You
um
wear all that with pride because that's you and you can't change who you are. And it's still inspirational because, like we were saying, you're not alone on this. Everybody, a lot of people are on this. If we were to look at this, and so that's, man, forget all that. You're feeling great and it's about health and staying alive and feeling good for as long as possible.
right, exactly. So we'll see how far I get. If I could get to 150, it's not exactly, it's like 184 pounds. So that 150 is very reasonable for my height. um I had someone on from YouTube named Obese to Beast. He lost like 180 pounds and got on Ellen DeGeneres show and all that. But I had
Yeah, I
him
think I've heard of
on.
him.
What do you say?
I think I've heard of this character before.
Oh yeah, he's a very good guy, a young guy from San Diego. Um, and we were talking. What the reason why he got on Ellen was he did a YouTube show, not a show. He did a YouTube video about his loose skin and about how he wasn't going to get the surgery. Um, so I'm a little bit more vain, I think, and I it's like apparently it's like a $30,000 surgery. So I I don't know. It might be a few years until I can afford that, but it would be. I've been big my whole life. It would be crazy for me to like take my shirt off with confidence, and I don't even know. I don't even really care that much, at least right now, about having like rock hard abs or whatever. But I it sounds silly, but I always noticed that when I would see other guys in suits, that their button down shirt would go straight into their pants when they tucked it in. And for me, like there's always the gut in the way. so it would go over it. But it, like I like the idea of being able to wear like skinny jeans or skinny pants and like have the shirt go straight in. I've never had that happen, so that's sort of what my goal is right now.
Yeah, fuck yeah. And the body is adaptable and you're making those moves and hey man, it's your life and you're gonna make the sky is the limit, man. Absolutely. And with all that with everything taking place, with these surgeries, man, you can do anything and whatever it takes to get to that point, man. You're looking great, you're feeling great. I'm with you. We're following the journey. You guys follow his Patreon. What's the Patreon?
Just my name, Lee Syatt, LEESYATT. And you're more than welcome to join. I do, like I said, do 4 workouts a week. I do masterminds with everybody. But the Waistline podcast is free on everywhere you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. And it's probably one of the favorite things that I'm doing right now. The numbers wise, my other podcast, What Was I Thinking, is bigger, and other videos are more popular. But I really do enjoy just being able to connect with other people who I have something very big in common with. It's not every they're all I mean, we're probably in like the fattest country in the world, I think, but not everyone's big, and it's sometimes I think it's
Too much
hard
good food.
for yeah. There's oh my god, you brought up Chicago. Um,
Mhm.
there's
Oh,
I think sometimes it's a very isolating thing to be big, and a lot of times regular sized or skinny people, whatever you want to call them, um, everyone goes through their own struggles. So this one just happens to be mine. But I think people who aren't big, it's hard for them to really understand the issues that big people go through. And I'm not asking. There's no pity party here. It's I shouldn't have gotten to 336. It was completely my fault, and there's no one to blame but me and whoever owns McDonald's. It definitely is his fault. I love fast food, but it's I what I've learned, because I call it the Waistline because I'm ripping off Love Line. I don't know if you remember that radio show with Dr. Drew.
I do,
Um,
yeah, I do.
so I love that growing up, and I do listener calls on it, and the what I've learned from doing all those talks is just how much of a mental thing weight loss is for a lot of people, and it's it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and unfortunately, I'm one of them. But the eating plan, people get mad when you say diet, but the diet that I'm on now, the workout plan, seems to be working, and it's something that I think is pretty sustainable. And we'll see. Hopefully, the next time I come on, I'll come on with no shirt on.
Hey man, that sounds good to me. All right, Lee. Hey, man,
Absolutely.
you know, with all these fitness gurus, the thing is with social media, we have sort of like what I've come to learn is, Lee, so I work in acting and we see all these model types. You go to all these auditions. I go to the hair auditions. I'll go to anything, especially when I started, I would go to it all. And I would see, the most perfect looking people with the same problems, man. So it's just, we have this sort of like, I don't know what the appropriate word for it is, but it's like a vision bias. We have this expectation for a certain way to look now. Everybody struggles with it. So the fact that you're sharing your journey shows how confident you are, and the fact that you're going to get to where you want to get to, and you're going to accomplish your goals. And I have a lot of respect for that, Lee, and I appreciate you for being on the show.
Well, thank you very much. It was. I hope you're right, and I had a great time talking with you today. Thank you very much for having me on.
Hey, man, maybe we can get you on again in the future and follow up with you. Like you said, we'll get the shirt off and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Next time I come on, we'll both be wearing speedos.
Hey, man, sounds good to me, Lee. All right.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, Lee. Thank you very much as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Whenever this comes out, just tag me on it, and I'd love to repost it. Let me know.
All right, man. Sounds good to me, Lee. I really appreciate you for your time, man. It's been a great time and great to know you.